likewise in the water, you can really tell the difference of like, there's tiny little, the muscles that you use to balance get weak when you're rowing indoors. And suddenly you feel everything like, it's hard to explain, but every tiny little muscle in your body that you're using to actually like move the boat well has been neglected.
Well, I guess there's a lot of core balance, isn't it? So actually just keeping you focused in the water, whereas on an indoor rower, you can't really fall off it. So,
well, you haven't seen me row in the Hydrow, Tom, so you never know.
It's our story.
It's a separate story. Well, hello and welcome to The Stream, an unscripted, unedited, free-flowing conversation featuring guests who reject the status quo in the world of water and beyond. My name is Tom Freyberg. I'm an environmental journalist and content creator specializing in water.
And I'm Will Sarni, a water strategy consultant, doing my part to solve wicked water problems.
And don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for updates on content. And this week, we are delighted to welcome Sera Moon, who is a Hydrow athlete. Sera, welcome to the stream and come in.
It's so nice to be here. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you, Sera. So we've got lots to talk about. I know Will is a keen rower, so we definitely want to come on to that. But maybe before we kind of get on to the origin story, why don't you, just for people at home, just give us a brief kind of explanation on Hydrow, what kind of Hydrow is as a concept, as a movement, as a community, just to give us a bit of background, if you will.
Yeah, happy to. So Hydrow is the live outdoor reality rower. It's the first of its kind to be given the name of live outdoor reality. And what that means is we, the Hydrow athletes, do workouts on the water, on any water you can imagine all over the world. And we bring those workouts to you in your home and you row along with us, have a great time on your Hydrow. And so we take you a lot of different places and we've kind of fostered this really incredible community of people who didn't know they had an inclination to rowing, but now definitely do and have gotten the bug and we have a thriving online community of people who now love to talk about Hydrow and talk about rowing.
Very cool, very cool. And this is kind of the home fitness and home connected fitness has just seen an absolute boom this year, hasn't it? I guess accelerated by the pandemic, accelerated by gyms and fitness clubs being closed. And Will, you're a Hydrow rower yourself, aren't you?
I am. I love how you said I'm keen on rowing. That doesn't necessarily mean good. It just means hooked.
Well, I had to go from athlete. I had to go from introducing a rowing athlete to you, Will. I'm not sure what standard of rower you are, but we will find out, I'm sure.
Definitely not a Hydrow athlete or rowing athlete, but I got hooked on rowing roughly 3 years ago. A good friend of mine was a rower. And it just looked absolutely delightful and elegant. I don't think I had any clue as to how challenging it was, but got hooked on rowing out at a reservoir here in Colorado. And then about a year and a half later, just pre-pandemic, bought the Hydrow. And, it was an amazing gift to, have the ability to do that coupled with actually being on the water. So that's what keen means, Tom. It's hooked. It's not good.
That's the main thing. You're keen, you enjoy it. It's good for fitness. I know. Yeah. So just to reiterate then, so just for people who may not have seen the concept, it's kind of, so you can row and then see other athletes rowing on the water, as opposed to, because I know rowing in terms of like a concept to a gym, where I'm just looking at a screen in terms of the meters passing and the distance and all that sort of thing. And Will, I don't say, I'm not a professional athlete or anything at all, but just sometimes row. So Sera, let's kind of go into your kind of backstory, then, if we will, in terms of, because you were a semi-professional rock climber, right? But also studied science. Give us some more details on that, and then we'll come into some of the partnerships.
Yeah, so I started rock climbing when I was 5 years old. I I was keen on rock climbing for a good many years before I started actually competing in it. And I was on the junior national team until I was 19 years old. So at that point, I went to school and tried to let go of my athlete's identity and focus on science and do research and all of that. But I quickly discovered after just 1 year at school that I could not run from that. And I did move away from climbing, but realized that I needed to have some other sport and team in my life. I had a best friend in high school who was always telling me that I was doing my body a disservice by not being a rower because I was tall. So I decided to finally take her up on it, and I joined the Tufts women's rowing team. I walked on my sophomore year and totally fell in love with it immediately. I saw that same beauty in the rowing stroke and wanted to get really good at it. And so, I've been doing it ever since. I now train full time. I have hopes of being on the senior national team, hopefully in the coming years, and taking competition with rowing to the next level. But I also do spend a good amount of time filming workouts on the water and bringing rowing to our Hydrow members.
Very good. That's all part of the community, right? In terms of sharing your experience and being on the water. But I mean, there's something about, Will, I've heard you talking about it before, being connected to the water. Something so compared to, I mean, I've surfed a little bit before, and in the summer invested into a paddle board, which slightly different, but in terms of being connected to the water, getting a good workout, there's something that you can't really compare it to when it comes to other sports.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. I mean, you're, inches above the water, and any movement elicits a response by the boat. So connectivity is, it can't be overstated. And for me personally, I find that to be part of the magic in rowing, is that you're really connected to the water. And, Sera, we had a conversation with WWF and their work on conservation, similar to what you're doing with Waterorg, and it's that connectivity from a conservation perspective and recreational perspective that is really compelling for a lot of people. So it's the recreation part, but it's also appreciating the value of water.
Yeah, and I think for rowers especially, we appreciate the value of water because we need it, right? We spend so much time in these very different environments. I mean, you see boat houses and boat houses, I say with air quotes, all around the world that are really just racks with boats on them, and people walk into the water with their boats and just kind of go from from the shore. But you see so many different environments that people row in, and all of them, need help, and we appreciate them and we need them, and so it's in our best interest to help serve those communities. So I think Hydrow is just bringing that to the next level and showing people that, like, even if you're not physically there, you can help people gain access to water.
Yeah, I was so struck with the Hydrow in terms of, it's just so different than an erg for me. I mean, like radically different. I find now that I'm actually watching, the oar stroke and the entry of the blade, in addition to just watching my metrics, which, being keen, I try to avoid. But, really watching how the athletes row, and it's very transferable into the water. I don't know. It's compelling for me.
So for a non-rower, what does erg mean? Will, this is for a stationary traditional rowing machine, right?
Look, I'm not the authority here. I'll have Sera craft a response to that.
Sera, please explain erg.
What's an erg?
For non-rowing listeners and watchers.
So an erg is short for the word ergometer, which essentially just measures your force. So that's strictly, it is an erg meter.
Okay.
And yeah, so it is loosely applied to many different types of rowing machines out there on the market. And there are some that are more commonly used among the rowing community. And Hydrow is definitely the first of its type to have that 22-inch monitor on it that actually shows you not a small analog screen with numbers on it and the blank wall behind you, but actually shows you the water. And yes, like Will said, the rowers and what we're doing in the boat. And the really cool thing about erging on a Hydrow is that the athletes get to tell you what it feels like to be in the boat and actually explain that system and like how it feels, because I could go off for days, hours at least, talking about how beautiful a feeling it is to be like super connected to the water and the system. But in the simplest terms I can lay out for you, it's just your boat and your riggers and your oars have to be you're creating this system with the water, as in you're putting the oar in and you're anchoring yourself and propelling yourself past, and you do have to be in tune with the system and listen to what the boat is telling you. And you'll see when people first learn how to row and it's their first time on the water, like there's oar handles crashing up and down and bodies moving side to side, and it kind of looks chaotic. And it's because it takes some time to learn and become, very attuned to what exactly the changes that need to happen and how small that change needs to be. Because really, like, you feel the boat leaning to one side and you want to crash to the other side, but really it's just this small shift in weight. And so, I don't know, it's those sorts of things that I just love being able to communicate to people on screen when I'm in the water and I'm feeling these things, and it just makes me want to share. And I think it has really made our community love erging, and I say with air quotes, that being the motion of rowing indoors and measuring your output, but also love rowing as it is on the water and become interested in what that might feel like and how they might try it in the future.
So it seems to me that this promotes good form, like when you're rowing, because I read some articles about during the lockdown, and a lot of fitness equipment was selling out. People were trying to get hold of kettlebells and rowing machines for their houses because gyms are shut. But as a result, there were some serious injuries, right? Because obviously you're not in a gym environment with perhaps staff assisting. So to me, from what you're saying, the nature of this, having an instructor not perhaps watching you, but giving you tips and techniques, perhaps a more interactive, engaging experience. To me, I mean, I've not used it, but that it kind of tells me it's promoting a better, healthier form. Would that be accurate?
I would absolutely say so. I mean, certainly, I think all of the athletes on screen really try to promote the best form possible and emphasize that it is not about, going for it all the time. It's also about learning and seeing, we don't have to be going all out. It can be a meditative experience. It can be a difficult experience, certainly, if you want to make it that. But it's about, setting yourself up for success in the long run and doing what's right for your body. So in that sense, we definitely promote good form, and it's easier to see maybe not what you're doing at first, but you can see a good example of someone who does know what they're doing and try to emulate that. The other thing I'll say is that our online communities are really self-correcting now as our member base has grown and people have figured it out. People ask questions about form all the time, and it's so wonderful to see people on Facebook helping other people who have questions and say like, oh, I've been at this for weeks and I still have never felt any workout in my legs. Like, what am I doing wrong? And people really know how to answer it. And they're the same people who had those questions when they first got there. So it's been really cool to watch that.
Speaking of community, it's interesting to speak to rowers at the club I row at that have hydros, and comparing notes on building a team, competing on the hydro, in addition to rowing on the water. It just really reinforcing the love of rowing. And Sarah, you talked a little bit about feedback. I find it really interesting watching the athletes row in less than ideal water and how they're adjusting to that, because that's a very personal experience for me, rowing out in a reservoir. But it's like real feedback. It's, oh, okay, that's how they handled it. Smiling, laughing, but being stable, and connected to the water. So the real time feedback to me is really exciting.
You mentioned
Yeah,
the sorry, go on, Sarah.
Well, I was just gonna say that's the live outdoor reality part of it. We get what we get. We have to deal with it.
Right.
I was going to say, you both mentioned the word community, and obviously competition can be a big driver with people trying to get fit and kind of drive. And is that a big part of the Hydrow community? Will, are you told kind of people in the neighborhood who have rowed a similar distance and you have targets? To me, that seems a big part of it as well. And then that's perhaps a nice segue onto the Waterorg partnership as well.
The community is amazing. I mean, the rowing community is amazing, period. It really is. It's just a very different group of people that gravitate to being in this skinny, long boat a few inches off the water and find joy in it. Absolutely amazing. How's that?
Yeah.
We'll get you rowing, Tom, at some point.
I'm ready and waiting. Yeah, maybe we should have a little like the stream rowing session. Maybe we could kind of live out and film it. And I think obviously travel permitting next year. But in terms of competition, I was reading that there's a partnership with Waterorg, right? And so this is whenever somebody rows for 60 days straight, they get rewarded. You tell us about that, because I think the partnership of the two partners coming to let's talk a bit about that.
Yeah, so for every 60 days that somebody is active on their Hydrow then donates to water.org and donates enough to provide safe drinking water to a person in need in a developing country for life. So that has been a really huge part of what we do, and I think is great for our members, because they know that, well, first of all, it's bringing awareness about the fact that, I think it's I need to look at my numbers. 1 in 9 lack access to safe drinking water at home, and 2 billion people don't have access to a toilet. And so I think the more that we're able to talk about this, and the more that people realize that their meters aren't just their meters, we actually are helping, and they're helping when every time they get on, every day they get on. And so if they can have something that brings them back, that keeps them coming back, and makes them feel like they can talk about more than just themselves, on our Facebook platforms especially, then I think it creates a dimensionality to the community that's beautiful and actually is helping something.
I managed to convince my sister to buy a Hydrow, and she wasn't aware of the water.org connection, and she got so excited about it. It's like, oh, I thought this was a rowing machine, and now I feel like when I'm on it, I'm actually doing a little something, or maybe a lot if she rowed more. But that's a really powerful partnership that increases awareness and does good things in the world. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think, if we're going to be showing people, it takes us back to rowers in general caring about water. But if we're going to be showing people these beautiful places and depending on these systems and saying, like, look at all these things we can do, then it makes sense that our organization would have a connection to another one that actually, if you're bringing the water into your house, then let us, bring the water to someone else's. So I think it's kind of a beautiful metaphor of like a two-way street there, that
Right.
yeah, you can bring the water home, but you can also give it to someone else.
Well, I think there's many elements here. We talked with Stuart Orr about partnerships, perhaps with organisations not necessarily in your supply chain, and I think this is a great partnership. But also from a training point of view, I mean, personally, if I have something to aim for, I'm much more motivated if I think, right, in 6 months' time, I've got a race, and I think that 60-day time frame is kind of long enough for people to get into it, to row every day, and then think it's like a reward as well. But at the same time, like you say, it's delivering, from Water.org's point of view, access to clean water in developing nations when you know over 800 million people lack access to drinking water. So it's not only good from a personal point of view, from a fitness point of view, but from a greater good as well. So it ticks quite a few boxes.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you wholeheartely. As an athlete, like having a number of or a date on a calendar, this is what I'm aiming for. It definitely gives you that little extra kick of motivation, and just feels good. And it's something that, you know, it's not a one-time thing. Like it's every 60 days, and so
keep going, right?
Yeah. And when you're on your Hydrow, you have a calendar that you can look at on your progress page, and you can see circles for the days you've been active. And I think that the visualization of that too, of like knowing, you know, when my next Waterorg donation date is it's compelling. So I also I appreciate that a lot of what I talk about in my own workouts and just personally is just finding and giving empowerment, and helping women find strength and power in what they're doing. And a lot of what I discuss in workouts is mostly through sport, right? Like, how do we feel okay about feeling strong, because we've been kind of conditioned to want to play. We're not, you know, programmed to be the alphas in many situations, and you know, we aren't taught that strong is beautiful, or at least that hopefully that's changing now, and it is. But you know, growing up, I can still remember I've had guns on my arms for a long time, and a lot of people told me when I was growing up that wasn't attractive, and so I think, you know, giving power through sport, but also this connection of Water.org and helping women have safe drinking water makes a huge impact on their lives too, because then you're freeing up all this time for women and girls to get educations and start businesses and have economic upward mobility. And I just see a parallel there that's really powerful for me, because I want women to have strength, and I want them to keep growing, and I want us to feel confident in ourselves and who we are, and our capabilities. And so that part of it is very good for me.
You know, Sera, so first of all, thanks for doing that. And thanks for focusing on it. And this is like such a key issue in the world of water, where it's mostly men, not enough women, not enough, you know, ethnic diversity. Age is a big issue in terms of, you know, not enough young people. And, you know, what we're seeing is more and more of a focus on, you know, solving access to water that benefits women and children, but also getting women engaged in the community and being part of the solution, which, you know, historically they've really been excluded from. So, you know, I see this as a lot of moving parts around similar key issues, you know, in terms of who doesn't have access to water, who do we bring in, how do we empower women, how do we invest in women? You know, it feels like a turning point at this moment in time.
Yeah.
I don't know, Tom, what?
Absolutely. And I think.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that I think opening up the conversation and talking about it is. I wish there were more steps that have been taken, but I think it is a powerful step to take, and just bring awareness to the fact that there are own who you are and be proud of it and talk about it. And I don't. I think it's important.
Well, Sera, if you ever want to speak at a water conference on these topics, let us know.
All right, I will absolutely.
100%.
Seriously.
Yeah, 100%. I think we need more people like you and exactly what you've just said. And I think, having you as an ambassador, as a role model, I'm sure for the community.
Yeah.
And I mean, I have two small daughters, and I think about who they look to for role models. So for sure, I'm going to have to show them some of your videos, because some of the YouTube videos they watch of kids opening toys and that sort of thing, which we try and keep a lid on, So I think, yeah, but I think you're right, Will. I mean, I heard it described once. I interviewed the boss from Australian Utilities. She said, if you think about it, in developing countries, we mentioned about the nations lacking access to safe drinking water. Often the role of fetching water falls to small girls, which have to come out of school to fetch water. In terms of cleaning that water and using it, it falls to the women of the households. Yet when you look at developed nations and the water sector, like you said, Will, it's vastly dominated by male engineers often, right? And things are changing. So there's kind of a mismatch on that. So I think in terms of the connecting people to the water, having strong female role models, as well as helping to overcome that global problem, like I said, it ticks quite a few boxes. So Will, how many have you done the 60-day challenge? You must have. I mean, you row every day, right? So you must have, since you've had it.
I would love to tell you I row every day, but Hydrow knows my metrics. Well,
that's the thing with the data. There's no hiding, right? So
yeah. So I checked the 60-day challenge. Yeah, I mean, I do. I also look at my split time and meters rowed, consecutive days rowed, weeks rowed. Sarah, to your point, just getting that feedback every time I get on the machine is invaluable. There are no lies there. It's like right in your face. And yeah, the goal setting is a huge help. And it's interesting. It's very different than when I'm out on the water. I could set a goal when I'm out on the water, but I don't get feedback from, a panel in front of my face. I get it from my coach occasionally, but it's very different.
Yeah.
So Sarah, what do you row on the actual water? Is it, and you'll have to excuse if I butcher the rowing terms. Maybe this is a question better that comes from Will. But is
no, I want to hear you do this time.
No, hang on. No, is it a single that you row? And I'm just going to leave it there. I was going to go into some other options, but I might go wrong. So is it a single that you row?
It is a single that I row. I will break down the other options though quickly if that helps our audience. So single is pretty self-explanatory. It's one boat. You have two oars. Single person is rowing it, and that's what we call a sculling boat. So sculling boats are boats where each rower has two oars in their hands. So it gives that symmetric. Well, it always looks pretty symmetrical, but especially symmetrical overhead view. Then you have sweep boats, and in sweep boats you need at least two people to row one, and each person is holding one big oar. Hence why the smallest boat could be two people, because otherwise you'd go in circles. And and the sweep boats have names that don't sound. There's a pair, a 4, and an 8. And then sculling boats are a single, a double, a quad. So the names I think sound a little fancier. You're talking about sculling boats.
I feel enlightened. There's so much to it. Right. Okay.
Fancy boats are the sculling boats. It's a very simple rule. But yes, I row a single for the most part. That's what I train in. But it is not the boat class that I would necessarily compete in a world championship. Say, if I were to make a national team in hopefully the next year or two, that I could be rowing anything that I was selected for.
Very cool, very cool. So technically I got the question right. It's a single or, and then
You
I
did.
purposely left it blank, right? So then in terms
Yep.
of kind of a day in the life then, if you mentioned in terms of the ambitions, how many hours a day are you rowing? And are you kind of up at crazy hours to maintain that? I mean, talk us through a kind of average day of training, if you like.
Yeah. So I train for about 3 hours a day. And I don't wake up at crazy hours. Early enough, around 5 to 6 usually. And typically I'll row 1 to 2 times a day, depending on what sort of training day it is. But most days I do have 3 hours of cardio. So 90 minutes of that would be rowing, and then the other 90 would be a bike or a run. And then some days that second session is replaced with a lifting session. And it kind of depends what phase of our training cycle we're in. So my coach has the explanations and numbers on that, and I kind of just follow blindly. Not completely blindly, but yeah. So we'll right now in the dead of winter, this is like the kind of hide in a cave and train until it's summer and you can row on the water again. And at this point, my day is usually I wake up and I train, and then I come to work, and then in the evening I train again, and then I go to sleep. And that's most of the winter. In the summer, it becomes filled with more racing possibilities, and so the schedule gets a little bit lighter on the training side and a little bit heavier on the racing side.
Sera,
Yeah.
a comment, a question. When I started rowing, Advil was one of my best friends, and it felt like every muscle in my body was being used or abused. What's the percentage of muscle groups that are working when you're trying to balance the boat, not fall in the water, and have an elegant stroke?
It's a great question. So rowing is it works 86% of your muscles as opposed to around 44 for biking. So it is a full body workout. So it makes sense that your whole body would be sore. You'd be doing it right.
Yeah.
And you can always tell what I love about rowing is that we all have different strengths and weaknesses, but they really come out when two people of different statures or fitness levels go and row, and then one person will say, "Oh my God, my upper body is like totally wrecked." And another person will say, "Oh, I'm really feeling it in my thighs." So it really identifies your weak points. No hiding.
I used to do this training exercise. Maybe Sera, you'll say it's a load of rubbish. I don't know, but it was 30. It's a 30-30 challenge. So 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, and during the first 30 seconds, you need to try and row 150 meters. So it doesn't seem that crazy in the first couple of. So you do 30 seconds, row 150 meters, rest, then you do it again. And probably the first 2 or 3, you think it's fine. By the time you get to 10, 12, that 30 seconds seems like, oh my, like you're hanging off the row. And I used to do it kind of 3-4 times a week as a warm up before going into a circuits class. But I used to love it. But the thing is, Will, coming back to like the data element, is you could see progressively over the months that the number of reps I could get to, I would see an improvement. Like the first couple of times, towards the end, by 10, I was like almost falling off, and then after several months I could keep going and going, and that's what I loved about the training. So yeah, for the invitation to come back and row, I can't promise my rowing fitness is going to be anywhere near Will, or certainly not Sera, but I'll would love to get back into it.
Yeah, it's funny. The great thing is that you really can see your progress. And it's very easy to tell when you have or haven't been doing it consistently, right? Even for me, being on the water training in the summertime, and I'm in the boat all the time, and I feel great in the boat. And then when it comes time to go indoors for the winter, and I get back on the Hydrow, or on whatever I'm using to train, I feel the difference. It's funny. It punishes you for even a little time away. But likewise, in the water, you can really tell the difference of like there's tiny little the muscles that you use to balance get weak when you're rowing indoors, and suddenly you feel everything like it's hard to explain, but every tiny little muscle in your body that you're using to actually like move the boat well has been neglected.
Well, I guess there's a lot of core balance, isn't it? So actually just keeping you focused in the water, and back, whereas on an indoor rower, you can't really fall off it. So
well, you haven't seen me row in the Hydrow, Tom, so you never know.
There are stories.
That's a separate story. Most people wouldn't fall off. Okay.
Yeah, there we go. That's fair.
Okay. Well, Sera, thanks so much for joining us. Really great to hear about kind of your background, and the Hydrow community and the partnership with Waterorg. Really interesting, and I think this this community movement of kind of connected at-home fitness equipment, regardless of rowing, cycling, running, is only going to get bigger and bigger, I think, driven by the current circumstances. So great to see you and the organization position well for it. But Will, any closing comments from you?
Yeah, I was only joking about falling off the Hydrow seat, but no, I mean, what I love is this connection between, valuing water, appreciating water, and social impact. I mean, we could do so much more in terms of connecting these communities that improve our health, wellness, and social well-being. So much to do. It's a good way to kick off the new year.
Exactly. Well, Happy New Year again, guys. And thank you for joining us, Sera. And we'll have to have you back on to catch up, maybe season 3.
Yeah, anytime, please. Thank you so much for having me, you guys. Happy New Year.
Thanks, Sera.
All right. Thanks, Sera. Cheers, Will.
Be well.